All right, buckle up, Buttercups. We just dropped into a special report that sounds less like news and more like the plot of a geopolitical thriller. President Trump, Venezuela strikes and captured leaders. This isn't your grandma's morning news, folks. We're talking about a situation that could reshape international relations faster than you can say regime change. Today, we're diving deep into this breaking story, dissecting the claims, the implications, and what it all means for you, me, and the global chessboard. We're going to hit pause on some of the most jaw-dropping moments, pull back the curtain, and ask the tough questions. Because in a world where headlines hit harder than a Mike Tyson punch, it's crucial to understand what's really going on. So grab your popcorn, because this is going to be a wild ride. Let's roll the tape.
This is an ABC News special report.
Good morning, I'm Allison Cossack, and we're coming on the air this morning to tell you that President Trump has confirmed that strikes on Venezuela have been happening over the past few hours. And according to President Trump, Nicolás Maduro and his wife have been captured in Venezuela.
Whoa, 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 hold the phone. Did you just hear that? President Trump has confirmed that strikes on Venezuela have been happening over the past few hours. And according to President Trump, Nicolás Maduro and his wife have been captured in Venezuela. That's not just a headline, that's a geopolitical earthquake. I mean, talk about a mic drop. For a U.S. president to confirm military strikes and the capture of another head of state on the fly, that's unprecedented in modern times. This isn't some covert operation that's going to leak in 6 months. This is front page news announced by the man himself. Now let's unpack this. The speed, the scale, the sheer audacity of it all. We're talking about a sovereign nation, and suddenly its leader and his wife are captured and flown out. It's like something out of a bad action movie, except, it's real life, and the network is just reporting it as confirmed by President Trump. So shh, there's no sources say, no intelligence suggests, it's a direct confirmation. This immediately raises so many flags. How was this executed? Where are they? And perhaps most importantly, why now and why so publicly? It feels like a chess move made with a sledgehammer. And while the U.S. has certainly had a contentious relationship with Maduro's regime, this kind of direct intervention is a whole different ballgame. It bypasses so many traditional diplomatic and military protocols. It's almost as if the standard playbook was thrown out the window and a new, more direct approach was adopted. It's a shocking development, to say the least, and one that will have reverberations across the globe. Is this a new era of foreign policy or a one-off born of unique circumstances? Either way, it's a lot to process.
There have been scenes of multiple explosions and low-flying aircraft. All of that heard beginning around 2 a.m. local time in the capital city of Caracas. And the FAA is now banning U.S. commercial flights in Venezuela airspace over what's being called ongoing military activity. This comes after weeks of the U.S. ramping up pressure on the government of President Nicolás Maduro, including seizing 2 oil tankers and conducting deadly military strikes on alleged drug boat smugglers. At least 115 people have been killed in more than 30 strikes since September. The FAA warned major airlines about a potentially hazardous situation in the skies over Venezuela, citing worsening security and heightened military activity. And the U.S. recently added Maduro and his government to the State Department's list of the world's most dangerous terrorist organizations. In a pre-taped interview this week, Maduro accused the U.S. of mounting a months-long pressure campaign to force a regime change and to gain access to vast oil reserves. Maduro has also denied having any ties to the drug trade, accusing the U.S. of using the drug smuggling as a way to oust him from office. Let's go to ABC News correspondent Matt Rivers. He joins us live now on the phone. Matt, what are you hearing? What's the latest?
This stunning message, quite frankly, from President Trump posting on Truth Social, where he says the United States has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its president, Nicolás Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. He goes on to say the operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. News conference later today at 11 a.m. Venezuelan government, or what is left of it apparently at this point, put out a statement saying that it was the U.S. military responsible for this. The president of Colombia nearby had also accused the United States of doing this, but initially we didn't hear from the U.S. government specifically about what was going on until post from President Trump on Truth Social. Strikes were always a possibility given that force buildup that we've seen. But what is really going to stun the world, I think, is what happened, according to President Trump, that they were able to capture Nicolás Maduro and his wife and fly them out of the country. The operation being done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. Stunning overnight series of events in the country of Venezuela, not just these strikes themselves, but also the apparent capture and flying out of the country the head of government of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, and his wife. The United States has successfully carried out in the past tense a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leaders. So if you just use the president's words there, perhaps it's over, but we're not sure yet. We know that there was explosions across the area in places where we know there are military bases, where we know obviously, according to the president, that President Maduro has been captured and taken out of the country. Who is in charge of the government of Venezuela at the moment? Someone put out a statement within the Venezuelan government, and it clearly wasn't President Maduro, but we did get a message that was sent out to the media by remaining members, apparently, of the Maduro government.
All right, Matt Rivers, thanks so much for that great reporting and all of that analysis. Let's go to senior White House correspondent Selena Wang, who is joining us from West Palm Beach. Are you learning anything more from the White House?
We were waiting for an official statement from a U.S. official, from the Pentagon, from the White House. But what is so stunning here is that we got the official confirmation from the president, and what he said in his post online: the United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolás Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. Details to follow. The president goes on to say that there will be a news conference today at 11 a.m. at Mar-a-Lago here in West Palm Beach. We are still waiting for more information. We don't know where President Nicolás Maduro, along with his wife, have been taken to. There will certainly be questions asked at that 11 a.m. press conference. Lawmakers from both sides unclear what the end game from the president was, but certainly this announcement from the president is striking and stunning and surprising to many. Now, the president said just days ago, he revealed that the U.S. struck a dock in Venezuela that he claimed the cartels were using to transport drugs overseas.
Okay, Selena Wang, stand by. I'm going to go back to ABC's Matt Rivers with news about a statement from Venezuela's defense minister. Matt.
Yeah, so we're just, again, this is all just coming in. Bear with us as we sift through the details here, Allison. But Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez, who is speaking from an unknown place, has apparently come out and talking about this criminal, what he calls a criminal military aggression from the United States. He confirms once again that there were multiple areas within Caracas and the states surrounding Caracas that were targeted, including, crucially, Fort Tiuna. Fort Tiuna is the main military complex there right in Caracas, and striking that would certainly be considered a major escalation. And now, given what the president said, we know that helicopter gunships used on the part of the United States. And so he is speaking, has said that the government continues. He called the United States act criminal. He has announced a state of emergency across the entire national territory, and he has called up a deployment of all relevant military members there inside the country.
Okay, ABC's Matt Rivers, thanks so much for that information. I want to go to Stephen Ganyard. He's an ABC News contributor. I want to get your reaction now that we've heard, since the last time we spoke, now that we have confirmation about this move from the White House to get Maduro and his wife, capture them and out of the country. What is your reaction?
It's extraordinary. So this would seem to be a big operation that went after the main elements of the Maduro regime and the Venezuelan military.
All right, Stephen Ganyard, thanks so much for that. I want to go to Chief Global Affairs Correspondent Martha Raddatz. Martha, what is your reaction?
I think this was something that people were standing by for, but certainly not to this scale.
All right, ABC's Martha Raddatz, thanks so much. Again, President Trump confirming this moments ago that the U.S. launched large-scale strikes against Venezuela and that President Maduro and his wife have been captured and they've been flown out of the country. Actually, before we do that, let's get back to Selena Wang from West Palm Beach with more information from the White House.
We're actually learning a little bit more. The president is giving a brief interview to the New York Times where he celebrated the success of the mission to capture Maduro, saying, quote, a lot of good planning and a lot of great troops and people. He went on to say it was a brilliant operation, actually. And when the president was asked if he sought congressional authority or what is next for Venezuela, the president said he would address those matters during his news conference.
Okay, let's hit pause right there. And when the president was asked if he sought congressional authority or what is next for Venezuela, the president said he would address those matters during his news conference. And during his news conference, folks, this isn't like rescheduling a dentist appointment. This is about potentially bypassing one of the most fundamental checks and balances in American governance. The president just confirmed a major military operation and the capture of a foreign leader. And his response to whether he sought congressional authority is essentially, I'll get to that later, maybe at Mar-a-Lago. Now, I'm no constitutional scholar, but even a casual observer knows that the power to declare war, or at least authorize significant military action, rests with Congress. We've seen presidents push the boundaries of executive power before, from Vietnam to Libya, but usually there's at least some attempt to rationalize it under existing authorizations or emergency powers. To just say, I'll tell you about it later after the fact for an operation of this magnitude, that's like throwing a surprise party for your neighbor, then telling them you'll ask, you'll ask their permission to use their house after all the guests have arrived and the cake is cut. It just doesn't work that way. This isn't just a procedural hiccup, it's a massive power play. It sets a precedent that could empower future presidents to conduct military operations with even less oversight. And while some might argue that speed and secrecy are essential in such operations, the long-term implications for democratic accountability are huge. We're talking about a situation where the executive branch acts and then explains itself to the legislative branch rather than seeking prior authorization. It flips the constitutional script entirely. Whether you support the outcome in Venezuela or not, the process here raises serious questions about the separation of powers.
At Mar-a-Lago this morning, the president earlier posting that news conference is going to be at 11 a.m.
With the president declaring this a successful mission, do you know, and I know you're not on the ground in Venezuela, but are there still strikes happening over Venezuela?
So it appears that for now, the military action has been completed.
All right, Selena Wang, thanks so much for all of that great reporting. Let's go back to ABC News contributor Stephen Ganyard. Stephen, I'm curious what the ramifications you see at this moment are, knowing that the U.S. dipped in, took Nicolás Maduro and his wife, captured them, and flew them out of the country. What are the ramifications of this?
I think this may be the end of military action, at least for now, given that Maduro's regime will essentially fall. Successful operation by U.S. Special Operations Forces. Congress is not going to be happy about that, but if this is the last of the military strikes, then maybe it's all going to be a moot point.
Congress is not going to be happy about that. But if this is the last of the military strikes, then maybe it's all going to be a moot point. A moot point, really? With all due respect to the contributor, calling this a moot point if the military strikes are over is like saying a house fire is a moot point once the flames are out, completely ignoring the smoldering wreckage, the structural damage, and the fact that everyone's now homeless. It's a classic case of wishful thinking over actual consequences. Let's be real. When the U.S. military swoops in, captures a head of state, and flies them out of their own country, it's never a moot point. The ramifications are just beginning. First, there's the international outcry. What message does this send to other nations, especially those with leaders who might find themselves on the wrong side of U.S. policy. It sets a terrifying precedent for intervention and sovereignty. Are we now in an era where regime change can be executed unilaterally and then simply brushed aside because it's over? Then there's the situation inside Venezuela. Maduro might be gone, but the power vacuum, the instability, the potential for civil unrest, those aren't moot points. They're the seeds of future crises. Who fills the void? What happens to the military and government loyalists? And what about the Venezuelan people who just witnessed their government decapitated by a foreign power? This isn't a clean sweep. It's more like kicking over a very complex, very volatile Jenga tower. And let's not forget the domestic angle. Congress might not be happy, but dismissing their constitutional role as moot is to undermine the very fabric of our government. This wasn't a minor skirmish, it was a major act of war. The idea that it's all fine because the strikes are over is a dangerous oversimplification that ignores the long-term political, ethical, and legal fallout. It's far from moot. It's just getting started. What a whirlwind of information, analysis, and frankly, some truly mind-boggling revelations, from the initial shock of President Trump's confirmation to the constitutional questions surrounding congressional authority, and then the dismissal of serious ramifications as moot points. This story has it all. It's a stark reminder that in the world of geopolitics, nothing is ever as simple as it seems, and every action has a ripple effect that can be felt for years, if not decades. So what do you think? Is this a bold, decisive move that was long overdue, or a dangerous precedent that undermines international law and domestic checks and balances? Let us know in the comments below. Your perspective is crucial as we navigate these complex issues together. If you found this analysis insightful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into critical political events, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next breakdown. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep those critical thinking caps on.